Hello, and welcome to Takes One to Write One. I'm Katherine Arcady, and I'm a writer. However, my characters are everything but. While research gives me information about their jobs and lifestyles, it doesn't give me the first-hand experience needed to write a well-rounded character. So, I created this podcast where I invite people on to talk about their jobs, their hobbies, or their beliefs because it takes one to write one. This is part 2 of the Playing in a Band episode. I'm talking to David, who has played guitar since he was 14 and has played in 8 bands since then. Let's continue to learn about what it's like to play in a band. Yeah, what sort of personality types do you notice? Do you come across?
Like with people that watch our band, like with a cover band.
Yeah. People that watch, people that play,
Usually just like outgoing people. I would say like at a base level, just outgoing people, people who are willing to make it out to a bar and have a good time with their friends. And if they enjoy the show, then they come to us. We're like I said, like we're not going to get like when I said earlier about when I was joking about Sugar Bush Tavern. And the only reason why I bring that up is because it's such a small place, right? So it's like we're not trying to impede or assert ourselves into a place where people could possibly come out and find entertainment in other ways than just hearing live music. So we try to kind of cater to the fact that, hey, we're just going to make your experience just a little bit better if that's a way we can kind of fit in there and kind of fit into the mold of what you're looking for. But when we get off the stage, it's like if people want to approach us, then that's fine. But we're not going to like get off the stage and be like, yeah, like pull up our pants and yeah, like oh, who wants to talk to us now? Like we just played 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20. What you think about that? So no, we don't really like go up to people. Usually they kind of approach us. So, and usually we just kind of get like just outgoing people that just want to make a conversation and want to have a good time. So, and that there's all different kinds of people. I mean, like I don't know. You're kind of making me realize that like I kind of like in my mind like I don't really. In those moments, I don't really like I'm not looking at people like, oh, this is a jock guy, or this is a girl that plays hockey, or I'm not. I don't look at it like that, I guess, because I don't know.
How do you look at it?
Just generalize. I like meeting people, so that's about it at the end of the day. I don't mean to be so bland and open about answering the question, but that's pretty much like what it is. At the end of the day, then any sort of way we can kind of like meet people and create opportunities for our band in the future would be great too. So we've played a lot of private gigs by playing bars. So,
ooh,
yeah.
What are private gigs like?
You show up at somebody's house and they have like a charcuterie board set up, and you're like, ooh, I'll take a couple of those meats and cheeses and then play Beverly Hills.
Do you like playing those? Or is it, it's a gig?
I like playing private gigs actually, because you're kind of, well, at first it's kind of awkward because you walk into a house and you're like, this is not my house, this is somebody else's house, and you're like, oh my God. But you know that like everybody's kind of there just kind of looking for some entertainment at the end of the day, so that's pretty much what that is.
Is there any different equipment, or is it, full set, what you bring to a bar is what you bring to the private gig?
Depends on what they're looking for.
Oh.
Like we played full band acoustic sets, whereas like none of us are actually playing an electric guitar. We don't have any amps. We're just going straight out of PA.
That's neat.
And then Phil's banging on a cajon.
On a what?
A cajon.
A
cajon. So a cajon is like, it's like a seat that you sit on and you can like bang it. Like,
oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
I'm not a drummer. No, cajon. Kahone, maybe?
K-A. We're going to spell check this. K-A-H-O-N. Oh, I don't have Wi-Fi.
Let me check my internet.
Yeah, thanks. What is it like hauling equipment? is that your weekly cardio? Is that something that you have streamlined over these years? Is it always and forever will be the bane of your existence? Because I'm looking at these boxes that you have right now. They got to have some heft.
So to answer your question,
Yeah.
a cajon is spelled Cajon.
Oh,
Cajon.
interesting.
So I learned that. So like loading my equipment. Honestly, okay, so the one thing, so I'm moving soon. I'm moving into a different place. And whenever I move furniture, I remind myself that it will never be as bad as loading music equipment. Because music equipment is so heavy. My amp is so heavy. It's not that heavy, but it's heavier than my couch. It's heavier than maybe not as heavy as my
Lazy boy.
My lazy boy.
It's dense.
Yeah, it's dense. It's just, and you want your amp to be heavy. That's the wood talking. That's the wood kicking back going.
Okay.
And, the thicker the wood, the better the sound you're going to get out of it. I mean, that's just what it is. So I'm lifting wood,
How much, I guess, weight-wise, if you could quantify it, what sort of equipment, what sort of weight, what are you hauling around?
So my amp is probably like 60 pounds. My pedal board's probably like 30 pounds. My guitar is probably like 20 pounds. That's about it.
So
my
it's
bag.
a multiple trip sort of thing, loading the van.
Yeah, so like, we kind of, so I'm kind of the black sheep because we have a trailer and everybody keeps their equipment in the trailer. And I'm the one that's like, I'm not keeping my stuff in the trailer because you guys are psychopaths.
Where do they put the trailer?
They leave it outside.
What?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to keep my tube amp
Up to the
in
elements?
a trailer in cold. And I mean, it's not cold now, but it gets, cooler at night and it gets hot during the day, then condensation and morning dew. And
What's a tube amp?
a tube amp?
Mm-hmm.
It's an amp that has power tubes in it that power the circuit board to... Okay, so, I mean, the only way I can differentiate to an audience the difference between a tube amp and a solid state amp.
Ooh, okay.
Those are really the only two amps that, you would probably think about purchasing. So a solid state amp, if your master volume knob goes to 10, like it should, you'll probably start hearing some breakage in the clean tone when you start getting around 6, 7 volume. And that's the difference between a solid state and a tube amp. A tube amp would be like, I'm cranking an 8 right now on my tube amp, and I am clean as day. Like, I'm still pushing. It's still sounding great. And that's what I love about my tube amp. I love it. I get shit about it in my cover band. They're just like, you get a smaller amp. I'm like, no. It's funny because the amp that I particularly have is literally a studio amplifier. It's literally a studio amp that was used in so many 90s songs. Like, literally. Like, it's such an iconic amp for 90s music.
Was that just the standard? Was it most available at that time?
It was like the most used. I don't know why it was the most used, but I could assume that it was just probably the most basic, great sounding amp you could find.
What's
the most
the model?
versatile. It's a Vox AC30, a CC2, which stands for Custom Classic 2.
Neat.
And the Custom Classic 2 has the Celestion Greenback speakers in it.
Oh.
Yep.
Look at us going full circle. Yay.
Yep.
So, what is a physical item that you cherish in with everything having to do with playing in a band? What is one item, if something were to be burning and you had to go in and run and get one thing, what would that be?
As far as like my music equipment?
Yeah.
I have to take everything. I'm sorry. I would sacrifice my body to make a second trip to do it. that's just where I'm at with it. So I can't get the guitar. And I can't play the guitar. I mean, I can play the guitar without the amp, but I need the amp. So amp's worth more than my guitar. Yeah. I play a Reverend Club King, and I love that thing, and I'll never switch it back. I got friends that are just like, dude, when you're done using it, sell it to me. And I'm like, no, I will never. I'm actually kind of thinking about changing out the hardware on that guitar too. I have like a silver bridge on there, and I kind of want to change it to gold because it's on a black guitar.
Is that just aesthetic purposes?
Yeah, just straight aesthetic. It has nothing to do with the tone. I mean, it might have some buzzing because I might put it on wrong and have to get reset up, but I think the gold will look really nice on the black.
Why would it buzz?
Well, because the bridge, you can raise the bridge and the nut however you want, and then if I take that off and put on a new one, it might not be the exact same level as the one I had on there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So we mentioned the limited edition piece. I'd like to talk about that now and why it is limited edition. It's the wavy bar. Ooh.
The limited edition piece.
Yeah, the tiny little thing where you're like, oh, it's not that, but it's that. It's the Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, my wah-wah pedal?
Wah-wah pedal.
So it's actually kind of a funny story. I actually don't even use it. So it's actually kind of funny because my buddy was like, hey, happy birthday, dude. I cleaned out this thing. Put this pedal on your board because you're a lead guitar player and you need a wah-wah pedal on your board. And I was like, I don't want a fucking wah-wah pedal. I'm not going to use it. I don't want to be like dangling my foot around. Like, I don't want to be doing that. That's literally what it sounds like. No knock on wah-wahs, but that's just kind of where I am with it.
There's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place, and he's perfectly set in his way to. The cover band is a time and a place to use it. I'm not gonna lie, but once again, I'm kind of a purist, and I don't like having a lot of different pedal tones and stuff like that. I'm very dry. But so anyway, I'm not using this pedal, and my buddy is like, hey, I'm looking to buy a wah pedal. I'm like, actually, I have an extra one. Like, you can probably buy this like crybaby thing and whatever. And I look it up. He's like, well, how much do you want for it? So I look it up, and it's like this rare Jimi Hendrix like model edition that goes for like over $200. And I'm like, dude, I can't sell this to you unless you want it, but I don't want to sell it to you. And he's like, dude, I don't even want that. I just want a regular $60 one. So that's kind of like where we were with that. But I don't even use it. Like, it's literally sitting in a box over there, like most of my stuff currently.
Now, is that something that over the years it will gain, value, or is it one of those techie things where it's like, well, it kind of had its time, it kind of had its place, we're no longer using that anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that particular pedal could gain value over time, and that's why I didn't want to sell it for the price that it's even at right now, because it's expensive. It's a little bit more costly to make a pedal like that. It's like a Model A, wah-wah, something. I wish I knew exactly what it was called, but it's right on the front of it. It's got a silver plate etched right into it, or etched silver plate right in the front of it. And that's why I didn't want to sell it, because I'm like, well, I don't know how much longer they're going to be manufacturing these. It seems like it's kind of like not manufactured as much as like just like our standard crybaby wah-wah or a Vox wah or anything like that. Vox also makes wahs too. I used to have a Vox wah, but it didn't have a 9-volt on it. And I was like, dude, I can't just be plugging a battery to it. I need like an actual like outlet.
Okay. So when reading books and journals and watching, MTV and just getting all of this information, there's bound to be out-of-date tools or terminology. As far as, playing in a band or learning more about music, how much change have you seen over the years? Like, are there terms that used to be used or tools that are just kind of now just really nice paperweights? Or is it the guitar just is always going to be a guitar? This pedal is always going to be this pedal.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's really going to continue to live on with music, no matter what the genre is or any tool that's being used, is as long as music is passionate, that's all that matters. If there's passion and it's true passion, no matter what the genre is, it's going to work. Like, am I a fan of Post Malone? Yes. Do I listen to his music? No. Is he passionate? Yes. Like, he's a really passionate dude that is very talented, but I don't like the genre of his music that much. And that's okay. Like, I don't think it's bad, you know? I don't know if this answering your question, like the tools, like in different instruments being used nowadays than it was back then, or is the guitar is going to be the most mainstream. I think that guitar is always going to live on to do what it does. I think nowadays, like, you're seeing like more of like a lo-fi resurrection. Like, it's like a lot more people are like into the brass instrumentation and the jazz instrumentation. I went to college to be a trumpet player, and it's like, okay, yeah, you did it, but you don't got the fucking means to like write something awesome, like, or write something good. And that's not like, it's not my opinion. It's coming back to the point of passion. You know how to read music, you know how to do that stuff, but like, your passion is reading the music and playing the music you're reading. And there's passion in creating music, but I think a lot of people have to find the avenue in portraying the passion to the audience. And I think that's really the only tool that you really need. I think of bands like, have you ever heard of a band called Yeah Yeah Yeahs?
Yeah.
You know their one song Maps?
Yeah.
I love that song. And the reason why that comes to mind is because that song is purely passion.
It's so good.
It's purely
it's
passion.
In like 3 of my playlists.
That song is timeless because of the passion of it. That's literally what it is. Like, it's not the best sounding tone song, but it fits because the passion and the delivery of it. That's the best way I can describe it. You know, when you think about like early 90s bands like Shonen Knife, was like these band from like Japan or something that came over, and they were like barely speaking English, but they were like this punk chick band, 3-piece chick band that was just like Shonen Knife, and they were just like super passionate about what they did. That's just what they did. Like, people loved it, you know, like, or even like, you know, when I think about passion too, I think about like in a different genre, I think about like a band called like Death Grips, right? You heard Death Grips? No. Super weird, super demonic, super like just dark. But it's like if you took like Old Dirty Bastard from like Wu-Tang Clan and like extracted him out of a band and kind of put him in his own lane and was like, okay, just be dirty, more dirtier than you are. I don't know. It's like, it's just the passion that lives on. It doesn't matter what instrument you're using. My whole point is that it's, if you believe that it's right and you believe in what you're doing, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you say that, because with a lot of these songs, like Stranger Things, there's this very popular song by an artist of which I forget, but it's the 80s revival. It's kind of very synthy. It definitely has a sound that's, you know, kind of dated, but it's the passion that comes through that makes it, you know, still.
You talking about the TV show?
Yeah, the show Stranger Things.
Have you seen every episode?
No.
I haven't. I saw the first season. That was it. That's all I see.
I'm trying to remember if I didn't jump on that bandwagon.
Oh, you're talking about the intro.
Behind. No. It's if I could make a deal with God, it's this very viral song going around right now. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's synthy. It has vocals that aren't what you hear nowadays. I would like to say it's from the 80s sort of thing. But it's the passion that comes through, even if it's a different tool that's not used nowadays.
Totally.
Passion is the future-proof part.
Why is the Beatles so relevant?
Why are the Beatles
Because they're
so
passionate.
relevant? Interesting.
Why is the Rolling Stones, or do I like the Rolling Stones? I've tried really hard to like the Rolling Stones, and I will get smacked in the face, which is not my preferred way to get touched. But it's like the Rolling Stones are passionate. Mick Jagger in his delivery as a vocalist is passionate, and like I can't deny that. And that's what keeps me coming back and try to dig. I'm like, I feel like when I'm listening to Rolling Stones, I'm like, I'm digging into them and I'm just using my hands and I don't have tools. And like, I feel like most of their fans, honestly, just like the singles, because they could play a gig and play 30 singles or 25 singles to their entire career.
Sure.
And people would be like, that was a great gig. But like, I'm listening to deep cuts. I'm listening to like the full album front to back, and I'm like, well, there's a handful of songs on this record that actually like I don't really like. And Keith Richards is kind of not that good of a guitar player, but I get where he's at. I get where he's at. He's great. I'm not saying I mean, he's a great guitar player.
Sure.
But when I listen to it, I just don't. I'm not inspired like I am with the Beatles.
Do you like taking in full albums?
Yes.
What is it for the people that don't really do that anymore? What are they missing out on not listening to whole albums like you are?
Well, I think when it comes to like for me listening to full albums, I think I've kind of like I have like an echo chamber of what I've that's a really good question. Because there's a few genres of music nowadays, where artists like they're not really aiming to put out like a full album worth of material that's digestible. And I guess digestible is not the right word. It's a lot of filler tunes on it. And you started getting that in the early 2000s and the late 90s before like music streaming services. This is before music streaming services. Wow, I got to take a step back. It's like when Napster was coming out.
Ooh.
And like Kazaa and like all these different like downloading platforms, these torrent platforms where people could just download the full album for free. And it kind of exposed the artist where it was like, hey, like I'm putting out this record and I have 3 singles on it, and the 3 songs on it were like the best songs on the album, and the rest didn't even like to fit the record. It just kind of seemed kind of weird. And like that's not a knock on the band by any means. But it's like it kind of like deters away from the direction in which you were pointed to go. It almost like kind of reminds me of like, hey, I like if I'm going to portray myself to you, right? And you view me as somebody like let's say we hung out, we had a great time, and you view me as somebody like this. And then that's the single you heard. I really like that single.
Oh.
And then you're like, I'm going to buy into this guy. I'm going to buy into this person. I want to see what this person's all about. And you get to know this person more. And they're like, this person's not even like that first time I hung out with this person. This person's completely different. That's like the rest of the album. It's like, wait, this first song I heard from you guys was amazing, and this second single I heard was amazing, but then the rest of the album is like nothing like that. And that was hard for me to digest because like first band that comes to mind is like Incubus.
Ooh.
Incubus, their earlier albums that are more like funk metal are great, and I love Morning View by Incubus. I love that album. But they have albums where it's like they have their singles and then their deep cuts. When I say deep cut, it's like tracks on the album that like will never have a chance of being a single. They're just on the album for space. I mean, and whatever. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, because an artist like, especially a band like Incubus, like I'm sure that's the way they, project themselves and want to be heard. So, and maybe they're just writing singles to just kind of get on the radio and just kind of sell albums, like whatever. Like, I understand why a band would sell out like after they have a successful album, because you want to make sure your next album sells enough copies so you can pay your legal lawyers and all this stuff, because now you're just trying to protect yourself.
Yeah. What kind of legalities might be involved with this sort of thing?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't. I mean, I guess I've heard stories from other artists where it's like you kind of want to cover your ass, and I don't know, certain artists, I mean, they fight like articles and magazines and on the internet because they don't want to be depicted a certain way, and they're just very self-conscious about how they're like seen. I know one of my favorite songwriters of all time is a songwriter called, his name is Ryan Adams, not Brian, but Ryan Adams. I love Ryan Adams. If I could play in a band and tour, it would be with him. I would, if he was like, if I could try out and he was like, I'm doing a Detroit tryout thing, I would do it. And, recently he's kind of come into some like sort of like, sexual allegations or things like that. But we all know like how like transparent that could be. And I think people can learn a lot from their mistakes and stuff like that. And I don't think anyone should be held accountable for what they do, but I think people can grow, and it was whatever. But I think that like at the end of the day, it's like, I would love to play with them.
So talk to me about these tryouts. What's a tryout?
Okay, so like when I think of a tryout, that's like when I went and played with like Jackson the Pool Sharks, and I showed up, and it's like, it's like you show up to band practice, and you're like, okay, let's play some songs, let's play some music, we jam, we see how we vibe. You get along with everybody. It's not so much just playing music as much as it is like having conversation and seeing where you fit in, and how you vibe with everybody else. But
it's all vibe.
It is all vibe. Like I don't want to be showing up to band practice and being like all grumpy, and then being like, what's up with this fucking Dave guy, So like it kind of works both ways, right? And it's like they're looking at me like, you came to our territory and you're playing in our territory. We've been playing a handful of these songs for so long, and you're just joined. But it works both ways. If I didn't vibe with it, I would be like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. Sorry.
Sure.
It goes both ways. It's not just like, hey, I'm begging you to play with me. And that's like something that's like, or I'm begging that you let me play with you. It's, or not even like a begging thing, but like, it's not like, it's just a vibe thing,
Is that something you had to learn, that it had to be a vibe thing?
Yeah.
Did you play with bands where there was no vibe?
Yeah, I literally had a jam session. So I was dating somebody a while ago, and she had a friend named Chris. I'll leave it at that. And then I show up to this jam session, and this dude is like playing guitar, like with like a lap guitar. He's got it like laying down. He's like playing like slide. He's like,
Oh, is that with like the metal?
Yeah, and he's like being all
thing?
weird about it, and the drummer like sucked. And I was sitting there, and I was just like, and they were all like macho about it. They were like, dude, we're like awesome, dude. Like, we're awesome. And like, for me, it's like, I'm never in like a situation, and I'm not trying to sound better because I'm like, oh, for me, I never think like that. I'm just saying like, I've always come into a situation where there's always room for improvement, right? It's always room for improvement, everything. And so like when you show up to a thing and someone's like trying to be like, and I play my guitar lap down like this, and nobody else does it like that. It's just like, or whatever. And it was just a really bad jam session. And then like after, it was like, they were like, oh, I don't think you like fit in with it. And I'm just like, yeah, I agree. I don't think that's the case at all.
No
but he's got a lot of material. So good for him. Like, he's very good at like expressing himself, and like that's super cool.
It just didn't vibe with you.
Yeah, it's just, and that's when, and the reason why I brought up the whole like kind of like a personal aspect of it is because that is part of the vibe. Like, I can't show up to like Jackson in a way and be like, oh, I play guitar and this. It's like, no, let's just play music. Like, that's just what it is, Let's just be creative.
So you did the jam session because your girlfriend had a friend, and how did you find Jackson and the Pool Sharks? Was that an open audition? How does one find out that bands want a player?
Yeah. So I was playing in another band that I quit because I didn't vibe with it.
Just leave it at that.
Two of the people in the band, they had like huge egos and they just couldn't write music, and they would be like, we need new songs. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, look around the room and be like, I wonder who's going to write the new songs. Probably me. And it's like, it's just not fair. It's like, it's weird. So I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is like we had people in the band that like wouldn't practice, like, but they would think that they were like hot shit. And it was just like, my buddy ended up quitting the band before me, who actually got me into the band. And then I was just like, dude, like, I can't believe you quit before me. Now I have to be the dagger. Now I got to be the dagger. And I was like, okay, I'll be the dagger. So I quit. And then my buddy also plays in Jackson. So he was like, well, we were looking for a third guitar player. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I don't know what it'll entail, but I'll give it a shot. And that's kind of how it was. It was kind of like a word of mouth, friend of a friend, mutual. Most of the stuff that I've been through has been mutual. It's been through knowing people.
Okay.
I never really, honestly, out of the bands I've listed off, and we started this conversation like, oh, 8 bands you've been. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's never been from me walking into a Guitar Center or anything and just pulling a slip off the wall and being like, I want to play with whomever is on the wall.
But that's how it can be done.
It can be done that way.
If you don't know mutually, people will post wherever.
Yeah, it can be done that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can post it on the wall. You can post it on Facebook. You can post it on Craigslist.
Is there like a better place than another?
The best place to do it is just mutual, friend of a friend. Hey, I know this guy. You're trusting this dude. Hey, I'm friends with this guy. It's all about like
networking.
Yeah, and that's like kind of like what I was saying with you is like, if I have a house party and you come over and we get along, I can guarantee you're going to get along with my friends because I'm not any different with you than I am with my friends. So it's like, if you enjoy my company, they enjoy my company, you guys will enjoy your company. So it's kind of how the whole thing is, where it's like a mutual friend of a friend, where it's like, hey, I know this guy,
I see. How does one quit a band? It's one thing to get into it. How do you quit one?
Well,
is it a ghost? Is it a exit interview?
No, it's usually like, hey, I'm not feeling this anymore. But there are certain people that don't know how to handle that because their ego won't let them get over it, and that's it. I've made enemies from quitting bands. So, it's like I said, it's like a relationship with people, and certain people aren't emotionally mature enough to understand that things just don't work out sometimes. And I'm not going to feel bad about being the one that like asserts myself. So that's just how I feel, and that's just what I do.
Sure.
So that's just how it is for me in my
that's
reality.
How you roll. That's your vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about having friends with a band, around a band, knowing creatives. How is it like dating in that aspect? Has being in a band taken a back seat to dating somebody? Has dating somebody taken a back seat to playing in a band? Is there a certain balancing act that one must do?
Like being in a relationship with somebody?
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes like you have to kind of like be like, this is a priority of mine. This is what I want to do. And sometimes it can be hard to kind of get that point across. Also, it's not as fun. So it's when I go to band practice and I'm practicing with a band, we're working. We are working. We're putting time aside to work. And just because it's our passion and we're having fun doesn't mean we're not working. So sometimes I can get misinterpreted or misviewed as like, well, you get to go hang out with your friends and blah, 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 and hang out with your friends once a week. It's like, yeah, but we're like, this is all bound together by music. This is like, we're working. Like, we're trying to accomplish something, you know? Like, it's not like we're just getting together, drinking beers and watching UFC fights and, you know, playing hopscotch and holding hands, like, and smelling flowers. That's not what we're doing. Like, we're literally like working towards a goal, you know. And I think that kind of gets in the way, and it's more common. And you know what, like, I'll be a thumb pointer on that. That's, you know, maybe I could figure out a way to be better about that in my communication. But I feel like I have been. It's just like my judge of character, and I feel like and I don't mean judge a character like I'm pushing back on it and being like, it's my judge of character to where I pick. No, it's like it's a thumb pointer and like where I could be to kind of be a better communicator.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, that's my passion. So like, I don't think too much about it. You know.
So to have a girl that understands, like, this is what you're doing, work towards your goals, that's what would probably aid in a successful relationship, as opposed to a girl who, you know, wants to be at every show. Have you approached, either through yourself or through a bandmate, having a partner that's at every show kind of in a distrusting way as opposed to a supportive way, like seeing that there are no girls around them, or, you know, it's not you I don't trust, it's them. Is there any sort of jealousy that runs around in this sort of thing?
Yeah. And I think that's just because, like, I don't know, it's a tough situation. It's a tough thing sometimes, because what's narcissistic? It's like narcissistic. It can come off that way. Look at me, I'm on the stage and this is what I'm doing, and it's narcissistic, and it kind of has that sort of feeling about it, which I personally feel like I don't have that, because like I just like to play. And the reason why I bring up like narcissism is because, in a way, to somebody who's not too familiar with it, kind of feels that way, right? Like, you go to see somebody play like PJs or something, and all these people are like, you know, this person more than everybody else in the room, and it's, you know, they're getting way more attention. Now they're getting more attention from other people than you can give them, and their attention's divided. And I came all the way out here to see you, and you've only given me 5 minutes of your time. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to see you, so, or that person or whatever. So
it's very interesting. Groupies.
Not in my realm. Doesn't happen. That's it.
Are there people that follow the band just because?
Yeah. There are people who follow the cover band.
Oh.
We have fans like follow the cover band. We're like, you really wanted to hear Shimmer tonight?
Oh, you drove all this way.
Yeah, people from like White Lake driving. Dude, when we played at Rogers Roost, we had like 6, 8 people that came out from like White Lake.
That's a trip.
They drove out, you know, it's kind of interesting. So, you know, it's just what it is.
Does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel nervous? Does it?
No, it makes me feel good in the fact that like somebody can have a good time. So like there's this thing within me where I'm like, I'm giving up myself for all this stuff. And I'm not even the singer, right? Like, the singer in my cover band is on another level.
Why do you say that?
Because I will never meet another singer that can literally not do any vocal warm-ups and sing for 3.5 hours straight in a night and just be fine with it. And be like, oh, okay, whatever. We got a show tomorrow. Another 3.5 hour gig tomorrow. Oh, okay, yeah. Never. I've never. There are like national pop acts that like cannot do that. Like literally, and I think it's because the lead singer of my band also is like kind of deaf in one ear, so he kind of has his own like natural in-ear monitor. But yeah.
How do you communicate with your band members during a show?
That's actually kind of an interesting question. So, I'm usually stage left. And so the reason why I said that is because, I don't really have too much communication with my bass player who's stage right. But I know when we make mistakes because I'll look over at him and be like, give him a look, and he kind of smiles, and we kind of keep it like, it's fun. He's like, you made one mistake. Okay, good. Because we got a whole 3 more hours to go of other people's music, which is way more daunting than playing your own music.
There's an expectation. People know what it sounds like.
Exactly. There's an expectation to play the song, what people are familiar with hearing. But I will say, like, when it comes to vibing, like, or it comes to communication, I communicate more with our drummer, if anything.
Would you say the drummer is like the central HQ?
Yeah. The drum and bass.
Okay.
Drum and bass are the central. Without drum and bass being tight and in lockstep, that's the right word I want to say. The guitar that I play and the guitar that our singer plays would not sound as good. Okay. Yeah, it's the truth. So
what sort of, outside of looks, outside of saying, hey, we're going to play this song next, what kind of things are discussed? I imagine it's not long form, like, hey, I was thinking about doing this.
Oh, you're saying like when we're on stage and we're playing the next song?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that, sometimes, we have a set list and we'll go down and we'll look at it and be like, okay, the song's next, and we know what song to play next or transition into. And then this goes back to what I was saying earlier about 20 minutes ago or however long ago that was, maybe like an hour ago, I don't know, where the one pet peeve that I have that I actually get kind of pissed off about live is when they go into a song where I have to down tune and they don't communicate with me. So, yeah, sometimes it's not communicated at all.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it is. And if it's not communicated at all, it's not always a bad thing. It's only irritating to me when it's not communicated and I have to tune.
I see. So,
like, we'll do, like, Jimmy Eat World, like, the middle. And then, like, no one will be like, hey, we're going to the middle next. Our singer will just be like, dun, 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 and I'll stay on the D. Dun, 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 dun. And the whole time I'm like, oh, crap. I got to tune down. Because he can't go, dun, 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 dun. He can't go to that next part until I tune down.
I see. So I guess the audience could pick up, some sorts of things. But I'd imagine it's the goal for the audience to not notice.
We want them to notice. We want them to feel like they're engaged. The thing is like, when our singer plays that dun 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 dun, and he holds on the D, he just turns right to me and like faces me and goes dun 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 and stares at me. And it's like, dude, like, play that. Honestly, like, play it, stay on the D, and then talk into your microphone and be like, hopefully everyone's doing all right tonight. How's everybody doing? We're here. It's our name, blah, 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 whatever. Like us on Facebook, whatever. Oops, I just pooped my pants. And then the whole time I can tune down rather than just like turning 90 degrees in my direction and be like, dun, 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 dun.
Because then it's like, kind of definitely looks like an error.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not prepared.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there with my tuning peg, like, and it's like, but all in all, it's fun.
So perfect, because that segues into my next sort of question. Murphy's Law states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. What is something that is perhaps often overlooked or forgotten before you start playing where it takes the entire band to say, don't forget that, don't forget that, don't forget that?
Anything our drummer or singer can possibly forget. They just can't ever remember everything they have to bring.
Okay. What's an example?
I'm being a little too harsh. But there are times where we'll be getting set up, be like, frick, I forgot my iPad charger. And it's like, well, you need that for your lyrics. What are you going to do? This is where we are. That's your responsibility. Honestly, like, I don't really forget things. I keep everything. Like I said, I'm very simple, and I keep everything where it needs to be. I know where everything is. I'm not pointing a finger. I'm just saying that, like, even if he were sitting here today with us, he would say, yeah, you're right. Because he has so many things on his mind, you know, so I get it. You know, he's taken the lead of the band, you know.
Is that typical for lead singers to kind of be forgetful, scatterbrained? I also don't mean to be so harsh.
Yeah, I guess even, like, both bands I play in, I guess it's kind of so, like, in Jackson, like, our singer, like, he has a very uncanny ability to live in the moment. He's not a very good planner. He can't really plan that well. So he has, like, no anxiety. He's not really depressed. He doesn't really think of the. He lives, like, in the moment. He's got this, like, uncanny ability to just be in the moment. And I love that about him. I want you to not plan anything. Let me coordinate. I like coordinating stuff. I'm a good coordinator. I like doing that stuff. I like planning things. So yeah, I wish I had more of a hand in my other band.
Okay.
But I just kind of, you know, I'm still trying to find my niche in Jackson and where I'm at there. With the cover band, it's like I will literally go out. I mean, we went to Roger Seuss one time, and I was there when I was listening to a cover band, and I was there, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to call this place, like, the next day and like, we literally played the next gig because I was there, and I literally called.
Yeah, what's that like?
Communicating with, like, management or like whoever books gigs there.
Yeah, how do you become a band? How do you get
so
to
I
play?
have Paper Covers Rock demo CDs on my countertop right there behind you. They're right there.
What am I pointing at?
Right there.
Right
a little
here?
further. Yep.
Oh.
So I bring one of those.
Oops. Nice.
And they can hear a sample.
Nice. Okay, so it's a simple CD title. It says one.
Yeah, one
sampler.
So, like, the sampler is like it has, like, I think maybe like 8 to 10 tracks on it. We just cut and spliced. And then the second track is just another song that we just did
That's
full
a full
track
song,
of.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because we took the sampler track and we actually made, like, a now, like, you know, like the Now That's What I Call Music. We did, like, a YouTube video that's like, Now That's What I Call Music.
That's
And
funny.
it scrolls through and it, like, highlights whatever song we're currently playing and thing. It's on YouTube.
Okay. So you kind of have to brand yourself. You kind of have to be prepared. You can't say, oh, well, you know, I play in a band.
Well, you just got to put yourself in their shoes. Like, you got some guy some random dude coming up to you, like, whoever, like, anyone in our band. Hey, man, we want to play at your establishment. And it's like, well, I don't know who you are. So, okay, listen to this at least. And then you can book us. And if we sound bad, then don't book us again. But that never really happens. So the thing about the cover band is, like, there's so many times that we play, so often we play so many gigs where, like, play AC/DC Thunderstruck or play AC/DC. So many people want to hear, like, AC/DC. Am I a fan of AC/DC? No. But the one thing I admire about AC/DC is that they're just like balls to the wall. What you see is what you get. End of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Period at the end of the sentence. No more discussion. We're a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people like. But like, what I've learned about playing a cover band is that even though we will never play AC/DC, people just want to hear good music. Like, and I know I brought up Beverly Hills by Weezer so many times is because it's just a kind of a ridiculous song for a 90s band to cover because it's not even a 90s song.
I didn't want to bring that
And
up, but
yeah, it's just it's the most requested Weezer song. That's why we play it. And so it's like the reason why I bring that up once again is because the point is that people, as long as you sound good, no matter what you're playing, people will enjoy themselves.
That's good.
If people walk away from our gig, it's not that because they're saying that band sounded like shit. They're saying, I gotta go home and use the bathroom, or I gotta go home and they're not playing AC/DC and blah. But they'll never say, we never worsen somebody's experience from what they're doing, from their experience where they're going. We'll never like cater to worsening the experience. And so that's why we get asked to play again and asked to come back and asked to play weddings. And, if we want to get in the whole wedding conversation, like that's a short conversation, but like that's an avenue where we want to get into. But
how does one get into it?
Well, the thing about like weddings is, it's you booking that like months in advance. Like any sort of wedding gig that we'd have now booked would be like, maybe like the end of this year, maybe next year. So it's an investment of time, where you have to be like, okay, 6 months, 7 months from now, this is what I'm doing, And I kind of have an in. I actually work with somebody whose wife does wedding photography, and hopefully she can get us some gigs like in there when she does her wedding photography.
It's more of who you know.
Who we know. It's
more of a vibe.
Yeah, if you're good at what you do, and I believe that we're good at what we do. Like that's the confidence that I exude because we put the time into doing that. We're not going to get on stage and be bad. I mean, you've seen us play, like we're not like bad.
Yeah.
So, and I can say like, hey, you might not say we're good, but you're not going to say we're bad. But you will say we're good.
You're aiming high with that one. Yeah.
Aiming high?
Well, I'm kidding. But I did. I went to your show. I wanted to know what the vibe was, what the energy was, what it's like to be in. And I think what I love the most about listening to live music, more so in person than listening to like a live album, because live albums are great and whatnot, but there's this energy that is in an entire space that everybody gets to be a part of, that for, how long is a typical set for you? 3.5 hours, as you said?
Well, we'll do... Pardon me. We'll do like... We'll be booked for like 4 hours or like 3.5 hours. And we'll play 3 like hour and 20-minute sets.
I see.
And then we'll add like 10, 15-minute, 20-minute breaks in between.
It's kind of standard.
It's what we do.
I see.
That's what we do. That's what we ask for. It's kind of interesting because we all used to smoke cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes.
Dave.
I was smoking cigarettes. We were all smoking cigarettes. We would take breaks and all smoke cigarettes, get back in, sing for the rest of the night. All smoking cigarettes. And now none of us smoke cigarettes.
Well, that's good.
I mean, a couple people
That's
vape, but it's a good step.
So you, for the beginning, you take all this time to work up this energy in a room, to fill the space with good energy.
Sure. Mm.
Do you notice any difficulty after taking your break getting back into it?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really great question. That's a really good question because the thing is like, being a cover band, it's like, do we bring the energy or does the energy get brought to us? Right?
Whoa.
Like it's not, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's, so what I'm trying to say, what I mean by that is you don't want to be too like obtuse and be on stage and be like, here we are, dude. Yeah, dude. Slide by Google Dolls. Damn, dude. Blah. And then everyone's like, okay, what the fuck? And then you get off stage and you come back on, hey, everybody, we're back again. Whoa. And it's like, okay, like we just kind of let the crowd give us the energy rather than us be super obtuse and dunce about the situation or come off that way. So like it's it's interesting. So sometimes we know that like when we get back on stage, it's like, okay, this place, like especially when we play like White Lake Inn, it's like this place is turned into a locker room and we need to like come back on stage and like do something we have to do. So we'll play like Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right, and we'll do
What does it mean
whatever
to become a locker room, as you say?
it just gets hot and sweaty and people are just being all weird and drunk and throwing, dude, we have like bras thrown at our stage.
No.
Yeah, dude. It's
Really?
stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. It's just stupid. Just ridiculous. It's not people
What do you do with the bras? Do the girls come back and they're like, oh
yeah,
I dropped this?
we'll just leave them wherever they are.
Oh.
Yeah. Like we're pretty PG, to tell you the truth. We just, I don't know. We just like to play music. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I'll always go back to my boys and I'll always go back to the people in my band and be like, you know, we're just here to have fun and play music because really at the end of the day, there's nothing better than just using your hands on a weekend.
Using your hands.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. Other people just want to drink and have a good time. That's great. And sometimes you're on stage and you're like, man, I wish I was just out there, just engaging with other people rather than just being separate from the whole thing. Because like, for example, right, like New Year's gigs, like New Year's Eve, we play like New Year's Eve gigs. It's like sometimes it would be nice to not play a New Year's Eve gig and like be there with a girl and like experience it together. But I have to entertain. And it's like, and we get paid a lot of money for playing those kinds of gigs because, you know, venues trust us in doing those sort of things. So there is like a give and take. There is a give and take, you know, because sometimes depending on the situation, you're like, I really just want to enjoy this holiday for what it is. And I just want to take a day off, you know, but like, it just depends on what it is.
I see.
You know, sometimes it's like, okay, I'll just do it, but you know.
So taking yourself out of it, wanting to be a consumer, an audience member, as opposed to an entertainer. When you watch movies or when you watch TV shows or stuff about playing in a band, what are some things that you notice where you're like, oh yeah, we totally do that? Or are there, you know, movies or TV shows that totally get it wrong about like, oh, they've never played in a band before because of XYZ? Does common media usually get the idea of playing in a band correct, or is it kind of off?
It's kind of off, I will say.
So?
One of the most common misconceptions about being in a band is it's not as glamourable as it seems. I go back to, you know, when we were talking about being in a band and having to compromise. That's not just like, hey, I'm in a band and I'm compromising and woo, 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 and you can see me here. It's not that glamourable. Like, you're not showering for days. You understand? And there's other times where, like you hear, like, I remember I saw this one meme one time and it's like what the fans think being backstage is like, and it's like all these like hot, like, well, what perceived to be these emo dudes, like, not saying they're hot, like attractive, but like, oh yeah, we're having a party, like it's a hot party, dude. And but it's like what it's really like is like 4 guys in a parking lot with cars drinking Bud Lights. Like, it's like just not that glamourable, right? And I think like sometimes like movies kind of depict that way, especially if people are like listening to like or watching movies like Spinal Tap or something, which, you know, Spinal Tap, whatever. No one ever, I would hope that no one watched that movie and was like, that's exactly what it's like, because it's not anything like that if you thought that it was like that. But because amps don't go to 11. But I will say, I will say,
That's good to know.
it's good to know you'll never find an amp that goes to 11, and if you do, buy it immediately on your credit card. And don't second guess it, just put it right on your credit card and just do it. You know.
If you were to buy a piece of equipment right now, splurge, what's something that you want to splurge on right now? What's something that's been chilling in your shopping cart?
Like,
you're just waiting for a drunk night to just press the buy now button.
I would actually I would definitely splurge and buy a smaller amp. I would have a second amp.
You just spoke your love about the tube amp.
Yep.
And would it be another tube amp, or would it be the solid state?
So it's actually funny you said that.
Is that
you're
the
totally
correct term?
Yes, you were right.
Go me.
Yes. And what makes the difference between a tube amp and a solid state amp?
I'm so glad you asked, because I don't know the question. What's the difference between a tube amp and a solid state, Dave?
So, okay. Just to put it in just really basic terms, like,
I know you said one has a tube. Please help me.
Yeah, so the solid state amp I can turn up. So the tube amp you could turn up to like 7 or 8, right? And you would get a clear tone. That's what it is.
Okay.
A solid state amp, when you start getting that high and you start pushing your amp that high, it kind of starts breaking up and kind of starts getting this more gritty tone, which isn't a bad thing. But it's just like you kind of start getting this more like diminished tone because the amp can't push that tone as clear. But what I would like to get is a solid state Roland jazz chorus.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so I would want a 212 Roland jazz chorus. Bands like the Smiths, bands like The Cure. I love The Cure. I love the Smiths. I love a lot of those 80s bands that use those amplifiers. The thing is like the reason why I actually specifically would admire that amp is because, like I said, like I just push my clean tone and I would just push that. And I know a lot of people get the Roland jazz choruses for the actual effect of the amp, the reverb and the chorus effect of it, which I wouldn't use, which is sort of like a cardinal sin. Like, why the hell would you buy that amp and not use the built-in effects that it comes with, because that's what it's renowned for. But that amp by itself without the pedals is a great amp to have for if you're using passive pedal action.
Passive pedal.
Yeah, like what I mean by when I say passive is that my pedals aren't compromising my actual amp tone. They're just boosting the amp tone. I'm not turning on a pedal and it sounds like the pedal. I'm turning on the pedal and it's boosting whatever tone's on the amp. So, like, for example, like some people, like when you start playing guitar, like there's a Boss DS1 distortion, right? So that's the DS1 distortion.
Sure.
The DS1 distortion is like you'll push down on the pedal and then all of a sudden your amp just sounds like a DS1 distortion. It doesn't sound like the amp you're playing on. It doesn't matter what amp you have. It just sounds like a DS1 distortion. Just, you know, I'm not, and I don't mean and that was a great fart noise. I can't believe I did that. But the thing is like, I'm not even making a fart noise saying that like DS1's bad, because if I played in a band like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, I actually would kind of want a DS1 distortion because they actually kind of have that fuzz tone sort of thing going on. That's cool. But I'm all about the amp tone, so
okay.
That's why I would want a Roland Jazz Chorus. But a 212 Roland Jazz Chorus is not any smaller than what I already have, so I'm kind of already kind of fucking myself up in some way. So I actually
So
kind of
you're
want
gonna
to
have to
small.
carry around more equipment.
The thing is like when I talked about bass resonance out of like my Vox AC30, it's about how big the speakers are in it too, with how thick the wood is. That when I was talking about the weight of carrying it.
Okay.
If I get a smaller amp, it's not gonna be as bass resonant as like what I'm used to.
I see.
So
When you say wood, is it
Yeah.
actual wood?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the
okay.
cabinet's wood, and then it's just layered in vinyl. Like
Yeah, you've shown me. That's. Is it wise to kind of get what the standard is, or
what's your definition of standard?
well, you mentioned the tube amp that you had, that you have. It's
Yeah.
kind of what all the '90s bands.
Oh, you're
used.
saying my vision of standard.
I suppose so. Do you think? I guess what I'm asking is if it's the standard, if it's what everybody's getting, is that necessarily a good thing, or is it kind of wise to find whatever works with you, even if it isn't the right or the popular equipment to make?
It's
Like,
whatever.
does that sometimes make a huge difference?
Sure. No, that's a good question. I would say that whatever works with you. That goes back to the whole passion statement. As long as there's passion and you believe that that's what you want to, that's the tone you want, and that's the vibe you want to go with. And when I say tone, like I don't want to get on this tone thing like this is how my amp sounds. It's not just about that. It's about like if I'm walking through the woods and there's a field of flowers or whatever, I might want something chimey. I might want something a little more, kind of edgier, but like melodic. Like it's about how can I write the lyrics of the song without words.
Oh. Okay.
It's like when you ever like heard about like, okay, like depending on how someone's signature looks, how sharp it looks is like depending upon how their personality is. Like, hey, it's like someone signs a signature.
Oh, their written signature.
Yeah, their written signature. If it's like really edgy and like up and down, it's like sometimes their personality might be a little more like off kilter and like not as smooth. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
Where it's like, it's kind of like that in a way. I mean, I guess like writing your signature is like libel as far as law term. It's like more of like a thing where it's like, yeah, you're still writing something down, like a lyric, or like you would write a lyric down, but it's all about like the interpretation of like what you're saying. I don't know, like for me it's like I would rather write something that I could write something just musically without lyrics and just remember a point in time exactly like where it was and like how the air smelled, how I felt in that particular moment. And every time I play it or every time I listen back to the recording that I did on my phone or whatever I did will put me back in that exact moment and remind me exactly how I felt, what I smelled, what I heard, like every time. And that's why like I kind of like experiment with like open tunings and stuff like that on my acoustic guitar, because yeah, I don't know, like I had a song that I wrote, I showed you a while ago, but every time I play it, it reminds me of like fall time. It reminds me of like the air. It reminds me of it's just every time, and then there's times where like I'm literally by myself and I'm like, you know what, I really want to go back to that, and I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna tune my guitar, I'll tune my guitar, and then I'll be like, okay, this is exactly, it brings me back, it brings me exactly back to where I was, and at that point it's like I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't need lyrics to remind me of where I am. The lyrics sometimes don't even help the cause sometimes. In some ways, I just want the music there.
You're right. It has a beautiful way of putting you into a situation. Like I'll I'll listen to a playlist that I put together in high school, and I'll be damned. I'll feel like I'm back in high school again. It's just got that feeling. So I totally agree and connect with what you're saying. Is it kind of, when you hear people say that X band has Y quote unquote sound, they have a certain sound to them. There's a certain energy where you know that you're going to expect this sort of vibe. I mean, you've been saying this the entire time. There's certain vibes with music. There's certain feelings that are evoked out of just a tune change. I still don't fully understand the concept of major and minor and that sort of thing. That's a whole music theory of what it is, but
there's no music theory in understanding the feeling between them both. So imagine this. You're an Arctic Monkeys fan.
I am.
So like One for the Road is a minor song. Why is it a minor song? Or not why is it, but it's in a minor key and it sounds sad. It sounds dark. It's like brooding. The tone of the song is like brooding. The bass line's like crawling. That's not a major song. That's a minor key. That's like an E minor sort of thing going on there. I really like that song actually.
It's
so. I love that bass line. That's all I really like.
I have
about
a
it.
question. I think you've said maybe 3 or 4 times during this interview, you bring up a band and you say, do I like them? No. Do I think their music is good? Yeah. Or something to that effect.
Sure.
Dave, what's a band that you think is underrated, that you cannot love more, that everybody needs to listen to? What's a band that you like?
Pine Grove.
Pine Grove.
Pine Grove.
Okay. What about it?
It's astounding to me that a band like Pine Grove, you need to listen to this band. Like
okay.
I mean, like I know I've mentioned it a few times to you, but like Pine Grove, they're just one of those bands where you hear them and you feel like you heard them before. Ooh. And then eventually like they just fill a void in your life where you didn't think there was a void before. And you just kind of welcome it right in that slot. And they're so good. Like everything is self-produced. They're super passionate. I'm glad for bands like Pine Grove. Like they're great. They're great. They're great. I can't say enough about them. Like they're my favorite band. They've been my favorite band for like a while. Now, when I first started playing guitar and I started getting like my favorite band was Smashing Pumpkins. That was like my band.
Yes.
Smashing Pumpkins is one of my favorite bands of all time. Like I remember getting into like Siamese Dream. I have the vinyl over there. But I love Siamese Dream. I loved Melancholy. I love the first 5 Smashing Pumpkins records. That was a band that like shaped me into a guitar player. Because what Smashing Pumpkins taught me, especially with like album like Siamese Dream, is that you know how many guitar tracks are layered on some of those songs? There's literally like 30 guitar tracks layered,
really?
Playing different stuff. And I think about like where I'm at today. Why can I make a third guitar player fit so okay in a band where I'm playing when I'm playing? It's because I grew up learning Smashing Pumpkins songs and understanding how many layers there are to their songs. And it's like, okay, where do I fit in on this? It's fitting in. And then I'm like playing in Jackson. It's like, okay, well, we have a third guitar player. Like, where can we fit this third guitar player? And it's like, oh, well, I've already like done this. Like, I'm already familiar with finding the place,
I dig it. So I've been picking up through you and I talking, and perhaps I just like confirmation in this, that the resources that you use, how you find more information in this, is just being involved with it. Just putting yourself into a place where you can just experience it. Is that the best way to learn about everything going on with playing in a band?
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, anything you're doing in life is just immersiveness, immersing yourself in whatever you're doing. And like, and that's like when it comes to like what you're doing in writing, and that's like what I relate to you with is like, there's so many aspects of like what you're doing that like I relate to, that like, hey, I might not be as good of a writer as you, and I might not be is driven in certain aspects as you're doing, but I can totally relate and understand like where you're coming from. So it's like that's kind of the same thing.
I really appreciate you saying that. And Dave, geez Louise, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you and picking your brain. I have one last final question. That if you hold on, I have a page. It's okay. Here it is. Number 17 on this list. If somebody wasn't in this field, if somebody had never played in a band, never experienced what you or, the somewhat general population of people that have played in a band, if somebody wasn't in this field, they would never believe what?
The first thing that comes to mind, and it's really important, they would never believe how much time you'd sacrifice. I don't want to say sacrifice, but I think I want to, because I think somebody coming into the field would probably feel that immediately. People don't realize how much time you take out of your life to like do that. I mean, I'm not even like blowing smoke. It's literally like, it's one thing to be a musician like John Mayer and be like, I'm John Mayer and this is what it is. It's another thing to be a musician and be in a band where you're compromising with other people. I'm not saying John Mayer doesn't compromise. I love John Mayer.
I like that energy. We like bands now.
But the thing is like, I'll take it full circle back to the cover band when we started the whole conversation. When I play a gig and we get paid $500 and we got to split it 4 ways, let's just say, no one's really, the person who's paying us isn't understanding how much time that we've given up in our personal lives to make that happen. No, we don't get paid for learning the song. We don't get paid for practicing the song. We don't get paid for rehearsing the song. We don't get paid for loading up. We don't get paid for throwing the stuff in the trailer and that's loading up. We don't get paid for driving to the gig. We don't get paid for unloading. We don't get paid for setting up. We don't get paid for sound check. We don't get paid for any of that. So when you really like divvy out, when you really parse out the hours and all the stuff that you're integrated in and what you've consumed yourself in and what your obligations are, you're not even making like $8 an hour. But all those promoters, all they look at is, well, you entertained us for this amount of hours, so here you go. And based on that, okay, I made $25 an hour. I made $30 an hour. But there's so much more of that. And the only thing I can really say to like other musicians is just play and just have passion and just be yourself and just practice. Just keep practicing. If you like, it doesn't matter like if you're playing a trumpet, it doesn't matter if you're playing a keyboard, it doesn't matter if you're whatever, just keep practicing and like find your niche and just do that. Because I think the world really just needs like, I mean, we already have enough musicians already, obviously, but I feel like the world could always use more like passionate people and whatever endeavor that they're doing. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say.
It all comes down to passion.
That's it.
It all comes down to vibe.
Yeah.
And how much work you want to put into this.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the passion, the work doesn't feel like work. So, you wake up and you have these ideas that you live with, and you just write them down and you do whatever you got to do. And if the passion's there, you don't think of it as like work. And then sometimes you got to like kind of psych yourself out of it. Like, man, I need to start working, or I need to start doing work. But it's like, really, you have been doing work. You just don't.
Do you think you'll always have this passion?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to be 33 this year, so I don't know what would ever change that unless I couldn't physically play anymore. So, which I'd probably still find a way.
This has been the second part of a 2-part series for playing in a band. I hope you learned more. I know I did. Like and subscribe if you're interested in more writing resources. Until then, I'm Katherine Arcady, and remember, it takes one to write one.